and welcome to the Romance Track here at Continual. I'm your host, Gail C. Martin and Morgan Brice, and tonight we are talking about why we love romance series. Now, there's several different types of series to love, and we'll go through all of them, but first let's let our wonderful authors introduce themselves and maybe say a word about what type of romance they write. Vikki?
Hi, I am Vikki Perry. I am not published yet, but I am on my way. I'm under contract, and I write fantasy romance, among other types.
Okay. Nancy?
I'm Nancy Northcott, and I write paranormal romance and romantic suspense with occasional dabbling in other subgenres.
Wendy?
Hi, I'm Wendy Van Camp, and I write Regency Austen style romance. And my current series is called Letters from the Sea, and it features the characters from Jane Austen's book Persuasion.
Very cool. Libby?
I'm Libby Tanner, and I love writing rom-coms. My latest series is the Ciao Bella series, and they are all set in Italy.
Nice.
Very good. And I'm Gail C. Martin and Morgan Brice. As Gail, I write fantasy novels that have romantic subplots. And I mean, after they stop the bad guy, they deserve to fall in love. And as Morgan Brice, I write male-male paranormal romance. So lots of spooky stuff, and that's fun too. So let's talk about the appeal of romance series. And there are a couple of different ways series can unfold, and you may think of even more. But the two that occurred to me right off the bat, and we'll take them each one at a time, is a series with continuing characters where they fall in love in the first book and then we follow them through subsequent adventures as their relationship deepens. And then the second kind where it may be the setting is the commonality, perhaps, and the people, we have different couples getting together, but maybe in the same town or maybe on the same cruise ship. So the setting is the commonality. So let's take the multiple books with the same characters first. What appeals to you about that? What maybe doesn't appeal to you? Do you write that? And pros and cons. Vikki?
Yeah, I'm gonna start. Lucy Blue, who is a writer for Falstaff, does a great series that's about the Jazz Age. I think it's called the Stella Hart Mysteries. And I really enjoy those because I like seeing the relationship grow. I like seeing what the next conflict is in a book. Um, Mystery romance does that really well because there's always a new mystery. Um, Another series that does that kind of well is Mary Robinette Kowal's The Last Astronaut series. She starts out with a married couple, but the relationship is core to the plot. It's not just the it's central. You take out the relationship, you don't have the same plot, is what I'm saying. So I think it qualifies as a continuing romance series. Yeah, I like them because I like visiting the same characters over again and over again. That's fun for me.
Okay. Nancy?
I like reading both kinds of romances. I really enjoy, as Vikki was mentioning, mystery romances that have a very strong romantic element. Not, well, every once in a while, every 3, 4 chapters, something comes up about the romance. I read those books and I enjoy them, but I prefer ones with a stronger romantic strain, like Grace Burrow's Lady Violet books. There are 8 set after the Battle of Waterloo, and we follow Lady Violet as she pokes her nose into other people's business and incidentally straightens out her own romantic life in the process. And I just love them. They're wonderful. My Light Mage Wars books are the kind that you mentioned where the setting is the commonality. And also, I introduced a group of people in the first book, Renegade Mage, who were all going to be part of a hero couple in subsequent books. So, and I think a lot of romance readers, when you say a romance series, expect a different couple at the front unless you make it clear that it's a continuing couple. And I also write the Arachnid Files Romantic Suspense series, which is the guys with the guns as opposed to the ones with no shirts. And that also is a different couple in each book, but there are some connections among the characters. I have one series, which so far consists of one book that will be one couple going all the way through the series. And I would have continued that series, but like a dog we used to have, I'm easily distracted. So I really want to get back to it because I enjoy it. Because as I think Vikki was saying, or maybe it was Wendy, you can have more layers and more development of the relationship as you stay with them. And I think that's an advantage to writing the same couple going on because you really have a chance to explore what's going on between them and take more time to really resolve whatever issues they bring to the relationship before you get to the last book in the series, which was what will happen if/when someday I go back to that series.
Okay, Wendy? Wendy, we can't hear you. I was muted too.
I'm very sorry about that. Shows me where my head is today. Anyway, just as Nancy said, I really enjoy books that have the same couple because of the way the relationship develops and becomes richer over the series of the books. I think that's why I kind of prefer one-shot romances too, just because I get everything self-contained in that story, and it's about that couple and the reason that brings me to that book. That's the reason. Now, my own series, The Letters from the Sea, is, of course, featuring Jane Austen's couple, Anne Elliot and Captain Frederick Wentworth. But each book is slightly different. The Curate's Brother, which is the first one, which is available on Amazon right now, is about a prequel about how they met, but it also has a story about how Frederick's brother has a summer romance too. So the two couples are there. And as the series develops, it will always be about Anne and Frederick. They're always the main couple, but I have other romances going in the background as subplots. So each story, each book will be different, but it will always be about that same couple and bringing up more aspects of their relationship, and of course putting both characters on a very strong character arc, so they do change throughout the books. To me, that's just what I enjoy. But it's everybody has their own favorite way, and there's more ways to skin a cat, so to speak, if I can use that phrase these days.
Okay,
So, yes.
Libby?
Okay, well, I think I have some reading to do. I think I need to write down the titles from Vikki and Nancy and Wendy because I have not found a series or enjoyed a series with one main character couple throughout the series. I have enjoyed many of them that share the same hometown and that have, this is a brother or this is a friend and they share those things. But I haven't really had the chance to explore a series where you were following the same couple throughout. And I'm curious to see if I would enjoy that. To me, I write all first love stories. So there's something magical about the very beginning of things and that falling for the first time. And I don't know. I've been married 18 years next month, and I feel like a lot of that is very boring, and I wouldn't write a series about it. I don't know that year 5 or 10 or 15, the same old fights or new things. I don't know that would be as engaging. So I would love to try that out. I would love to try a series with one main character throughout and see if it really grips me the same way, a first love or a standalone romance does.
Just to cut in, those of us who are a little more elderly, we also do have romances. So I actually enjoy the development of characters and seeing how they are many years down the road, because not every relationship is a golden ticket all the way through. We all change, we all have differences. And I guess I find those things interesting, but maybe I'm just old fashioned. Anyway, I apologize for cutting
Yeah,
it.
that's okay.
No, no.
And forgive the
I
crunching noise. That is the chew bone I gave my golden retriever to keep him happy. And unfortunately, it's also sort of loud, which is why I've been muting myself. So I have 6 romance series that are true romance series, paranormal, but the emphasis is on the romance. And they're written under my Morgan Brice name. 5 of them have continuing characters. One of them is a location that is continuing, and the couples all change. We'll talk about that next. But I really enjoy writing continuing couples because while it's fun to get that flash of first love with the once and done couple and then move on to the next, or maybe they're the next door neighbors in the next book. I like getting to explore how the relationship develops. And I guess that goes along with being married 38 years. But you're not the same people. Now they're only together so far, a couple of years. So a lot of growth and change and exploration. But I I like seeing them learn to trust each other, learn to rely on each other's special abilities. Um, and we also, get insights into the location as well in most of the series. So I've kind of gone in 5 out of the 6 series with continuing characters. And I don't know how many books we will go in any of those series, but I know Jordan Hawk, who's one of my favorite paranormal authors, I think they're up to like 28 in one of the series.
Wow.
Now, the thing with paranormal romance is it's not just about falling in love and going out to dinner. You're also solving a case. You're dealing with monsters or ghosts or something supernatural. So there is a very strong plot as well as the falling in love part. But and maybe that's why I see a lot of the continuing characters in things like paranormal romance, because it's it's also dealing with that ongoing mystery, fantasy, the elements like that. Okay, round 2. Let's talk about the different couple every time. What do you love? What frustrates you? What do you enjoy writing? Or what would you like to write? Vikki.
All right, I'm going to start again. I'm going to offer a third type. It's really more of a an A and a B of the different couples in a continuing setting thing. And the B is that there's a long-term story arc, and I could not talk without my hand, y'all. A long-term story arc that you're sort of following. An example of that is a series I just reread this month, and that is Nalini Singh's Psy Changeling series and Psy Changeling / Trinity series. Right now in that series, the Psynet is about to collapse, and they're trying to prevent it. And so it's following the course, and as couples fall in love during the course of that, it's very interesting for me. I'm getting the to visit old friends, which is one of the things I like about series with characters that return, regardless of if it has a continuing storyline or not. And I get to follow the story, and it keeps me ready for the next book. If that makes sense to y'all. Me personally, I am writing a book called Bridgerton. That's basically Bridgerton meets the Avengers, and I'm trying to do the longer story arc. That's what's under contract with Falstaff, and maybe you'll see it in the next year or so. But yeah, I like okay, so I like all romance, but mostly the reason I like series with that are different couples in every story is that I like to visit the old friends. I like to see what's happening in their lives after the happily ever after, and I find that fun. So that's why I like them.
Okay, Nancy.
Well, consider me another vote for Nalini Singh, not only the Psy Changeling books, but the Guild Hunter books, which are very, very different. but they both, there's more different couple emphasis, as Vikki was saying in the Side Changeling books. Guild Hunter, there are different romances, but we also track the romance of a primary couple through the series. And I love it in part because her characters are so engrossing and so sympathetic, and her world building is just amazing. So another vote for Nalini Singh. I like reading series that have different couples in the forefront in each book because it's kind of fresh and different each time. And so I don't have to remember what went on with them in previous books. Now, granted, the author's going to give me a little reminder, so it's not totally down to my sometimes porous memory to keep up with that. But I just like the freshness of a new romance, and that's the way both my Light Mage books are and my Arachnid Spies. However, the Arachnid books do have, I mean, the Light Mage books do have a continuing plot line that arcs through it. Ghouls are working with demons to open a void gate to the void between worlds, and if that happens, we're all toast. So that's the plot line that runs through the whole series. The Arachnid Files books so far do not have a continuing plot line. They are just a different couple with a different spy adventure, but they all work for the same agency. So that's kind of the unifying feature in those. So, I read almost every kind of romance, and there actually is one other kind that we haven't mentioned, which is the kind of series that Harlequin and Silhouette put out, which are all written by different authors, but they have the same, they're not cookie cutter. And I really get irritated with people when they say that, but they have the same heat level, common elements to the story, but they're all put together differently because they're written by different people. And so I think I've read a number of those. I have friends who wrote for Harlequin and Silhouette, but I like a bigger plot, and those are very short books. And so the romance really is the entire focus of the book. There may be a plot, but it's not developed to the extent that it is in a longer book.
Okay, Wendy?
And this time I'm going to remember my mic. Anyway, I really feel that the romance books that have a different couple each time, and they usually have some kind of loose association. It could be seven brothers or seven sisters. It could be three cousins removed, but they always have some kind of connection between each book in the series. And like Nancy said, characters that were maybe a main character in a previous book will pop into the sequels, and you don't really have to know what they were doing in a previous book to still enjoy the present book. And I really feel this is kind of a recent format, or maybe I just haven't read back long enough or something, but it seems to be most authors are developing their romance series this way. And to do one with just a pair going through the entire series is kind of maybe the more older way of doing the series. But if it works, it works. We all want to meet reader expectations as writers, and I think a lot of romance readers enjoy this format. They want a nice quick read. They want to experience that first flush of love, like Libby writes about, and and that's enough. And if that's what they're looking for, that's what we as writers should be delivering. So I think this type of series lends to that very greatly.
Okay, Libby?
Yeah, like you were saying, Wendy, I think that this kind of series really gives you the best of both worlds because you can have a new, fresh couple that's getting to know each other and falling in love, and you've got all those sparks and obstacles and all the things. But around the periphery, you usually have some familiar faces. And I think, Vikki, you mentioned Bridgerton, and I think they do an excellent job with that. In fact, I remember starting those books and thinking that was such a brilliant idea to have all of these siblings and named alphabetically, and then the books are just each of them finding love and getting married. So to me, I love having a fresh new couple to get excited about and get to know, but then also still seeing, oh, they're having a family get together, and these people are coming, and now we see that they have a little boy, and now we see some things developing here. So I like that. I think Sarah Adams also does that well. She's got, I wouldn't call it a series, but she's got some books. I think the first one was When in Rome and This Small Town in Rome, Kentucky. And I don't know how many she's got now, 3 or 4. And then this one's the bodyguard of the celebrity that fell in love with the first one. And then this one's the sister of the, and it's really neat because we have a new couple that we're excited about, which is something I love. And then we also get to see those familiar faces that we've gotten to know and love, and that we're really interested in how they're doing. Is their marriage still going strong? Have they gotten married yet? Do they have kids? And I love that as kind of side periphery stories. For my Ciao Bella series, I was not planning on turning this into a series. I thought it was very much my first book, Better Than Gelato, was American girl goes to Italy and lives as a nanny, falls in love for the first time. And to me, it was like, okay, story done. And it was my publisher who um, encouraged me to consider a series for this. And I think maybe, Wendy, you brought it up that maybe this is a trend we're starting to see more of, that readers like to see these kinds of books that are series or even just related to each other, that standalone books, but then they have some returning characters. So in my Ciao Bella series, I have each one could be considered a standalone romance, but the Rossi family of Milan hires a new nanny each year. So we get to have a new American in that setting, and she gets to find a new love and have new adventures and chase a new dream, all while staying in the same house, trying to nanny this horrific child that the other nannies have all had to work with, and then also sharing kind of the same friend group there in the city of Milan. So that's been fun to get to write about a new character each time, but then also give glimpses of how the other ones are doing.
Okay. In my Gail books, the romances are all the same two people in love with each other from the time they fall in love until the end of the series, and we get to see the relationships grow. In the Morgan Brice series, 5 of them, we have the same couple throughout. But in the Fox Hollow series, which is Shifters, set in upstate New York, it's a different main couple in each book, although they are in the same small town, so they run into all the characters that we've seen in the prior books, and those people populate the town. They're both fun to write, and the previous characters in Fox Hollow show up in the new book because they live in the same town. But it's interesting because all of my books have some sort of mystery or paranormal subplot. So in some cases, they are dealing with, they're actually sleuths, and that's what they do, and they chase things down. But in the Fox Hollow books, something has brought them to upstate New York in the Adirondacks, and they meet their fated mate, and then things go awry until they work them out. And they have the support of the other people who have been mentioned in the prior books in the whole town. But that's kind of fun also because we have some very different types of characters having, these they're shifters, and so they have the fated mate thing going on, and not everybody's crazy about fated mates, even when they get one. So that's always fun to work through. So for me as an author, having that difference of it's a different couple every book, but it's in the setting where they see all the other couples that we've met is fun. But I have a real weakness for following the same couple through multiple books and getting to watch their relationship change and grow. And so I like both, but it's fun to be able to do both. So what do you think when you're writing characters in love? And if you don't have books that hit it from both sides, then what do you notice as a reader? Maybe the challenges of having a new couple in each book versus following the continuing relationship of a main couple. Vikki?
Yeah, so I'm going to speak as a reader because I've read more than I've written of these. One of the things I personally enjoy, and I imagine is probably a struggle for most authors, is when you meet a character and or you know two characters from a previous book and they're the couple now. So you have to figure out, okay, let's say my character is a cat shifter. We're going to use Nalini Singh as again as an example, because again, the fresh in my mind. And you know, you meet this cat shifter and this wolf shifter, and you've followed them in several books, and now they're a couple. So keeping the consistency of characterization throughout the love story, while also making them grow and change into a couple together. I guess that's my simple answer of what is the most difficult thing, I
Okay.
think.
Nancy?
Well, the heart of a romance novel for me is the romantic conflict. If it's not believable, then the story falls apart. And if there isn't a solid romantic conflict, then why are these people not getting together on page 10 and your story's over? So for me, the most challenging part of the series that have different couples each time is that first, they can't be cardboard cutouts of each other. They each have to have their own interests, their own backgrounds, their own problems that have to be developed for me. Other people do it differently before I can really see the direction the story is going to take. And one of the things my brainstorming group used to do early on, because I'd come in and I'd go like, with the couple in Embattled Mage, it's a second chance at love story, and he's a doctor and she's an FBI agent, and they lived together while in grad school, and he couldn't tell her that he was going off to study magic because her mother got really into woo-woo stuff and she can't stand anything like that, and she called him on it and he couldn't tell her, and she thought he was having an affair, and that was it. Well, it took us a day to come up with that. And the other question was, what are their wounds? What are their internal scars that keep them from getting together? And for Stefan, it was a concern about pushing somebody too far because a childhood friend of his had come around his house who was not magical and seen Stefan working magic, practicing magic in the backyard, and he freaked and ran into traffic and was killed. And so that's Stefan's scar. And with Mel, it's you cheated on me. You lied to me about where you were, and then you wouldn't tell me the truth. And because my mother was so into woo woo, I was bullied by all the town kids. I can't stand woo woo. And so that is what they have to get past. And it sounds so easy when I just say it here, but we spent the better part of a day plotting just the character stuff for that book before the arc came out. And so to me, that's a lot harder then I mean, I've got snippets of the books for the continuing couple written because I know what their issues are. I know how they're going to flare up. It's done. For me, it's simpler. I keep saying for me because everybody has their own challenges and their own different approaches. But that's kind of a long answer to your question. But I think it's making the characters different and giving them a realistic conflict that are the challenges of an ongoing series with different couples in the forefront.
Wendy?
Oh, what was the question again, Gail?
Oh,
I was too busy listening to Nancy. She's always so fascinating.
Oh, well, thank you.
you've had the chance to do it both ways. What do you prefer? What skills do you need? How does it work when you do that? What do you like?
Oh, okay. So in writing romance, in other words.
Yes.
I think for me, what works for me is getting the characters down first, deciding who they are, what their foibles are, what their dreams are, what might be their biggest obstacle. But I have to make sure I have everything written down. And I even write down wardrobe changes, to be perfectly honest, because I do a lot of historical fiction. And you you want to make sure you get those details right, because historical readers, they kind of dig that stuff. So you don't want to disappoint them either. But for me, getting the characters down first and then just letting them go and watching them interact as the story progresses. I tend to write discovery style for this kind of stuff, and just to get that basic going. And then once I get a lot of their interactions going, I pull in the plot and I start putting in things more structurally at that point. So it does make me rewrite a little bit more than maybe I would like. But for me, that seems to turn out a more organic and better book in the end. So I don't know, don't do what I say or do. You might have an easier method, but that's kind of how I do it.
Libby?
Yeah, I really liked what you shared, Nancy. I feel like a definite challenge of trying to create a new couple with each book is making sure that they're fully fleshed out. They aren't just kind of caricatures of a certain type, billionaire or jock or even, you know, best friend's brother, but really making them feel like distinct individual people, and then having those conflicts that feel real and big enough to keep this couple apart. And I think that that can be a real challenge. So in the first two books in my series, I had some different challenges that were keeping our couple apart, and some old wounds, like you said, that you find or create a character that has this wound, and then you find or create a character that has the perfect poking finger to poke at that wound and make everything flare up in the worst sort of way. So that's something that I has been a challenge, but also really fun, to kind of put the right people together. And but for the third book in the series, I really felt some frustrations with an obstacle that was keeping these two people together that felt true and not contrived. And so in my third book in the series, there is no third act breakup. There's no big misunderstanding. These guys like hit it off from the beginning and are all in, even kind of overcoming some of their wounds and past traumas that they have, and it's only external forces that keep them together in crucial parts of the story. But I felt really excited and a little bit freed not to have a third act breakup in this third book, because I felt like I just couldn't do one that felt true for this character. Hold on, Gail, we can't hear
Oh,
you.
thank you.
There we go.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So most of my series, four out of my 5 series, are continuing characters. And I like that because I enjoy getting to see the growth in the characters. You know, there's action adventure in all the books. So in the first book, they get together, but there's a it's usually under fire, and they barely make it by the skin of their teeth, and then they end up together. And there is continuing danger throughout the series, but that leaves a lot of room for them to get to know each other, to grow as in the relationship. None of them are teenagers, so they've been hurt before, they've been in relationships before, they have some scars to get over. And then there are the magical elements that have to be dealt with. And sometimes both people have a type of magic, sometimes one person does, and then the other person has to kind of work around that, including some skepticism, which is fun. In the Fox Hollow series, the characters are all different book to book, but they are shifters, and it's a different shifter couple in each book. So you also get to kind of explore not only two people falling in love, but two people falling in love where maybe one of them is a moose and the other person turns into a fox. Um, And that's kind of fun too. So to me, if I'm interested in the couple, either as an ongoing couple, as they learn to work together and combine their talents to hunt down the bad guys and confront some of the things in their past, as somebody who's been in a long-term relationship for a long time, that strikes me as very real. But it's also fun to do a different shifter couple in each book and explore some of the things that go with shifting into different animals and having some of those really unusual abilities that might be a lot of fun to have. So when you're coming up with your couples, um, how do you decide who you're going to write about? How do you decide person A and person B? How do you pick the characteristics and flesh that out? Vikki?
Okay, so I'm gonna talk about my plotting method because that's the easiest one. Generally speaking, I go in with a seed of an idea, and I start in the middle with a round circle with my idea seed in it. We'll say murder mystery romance. So, what do you need? Do you need a detective? So, you go off and you create your detective. And then you go off and you say, all right, what's the victim? Um, is the victim sister going to be the love interest? Is the another detective going to be the love interest? Maybe it's the lawyer for the accused that's going to be the love interest. So you play the game and you see what will build the most conflict. Because again, conflict is the center of any story. And relationship conflict is the center of a romance story. So what's going to cause the most conflict that will drive the story, keep them apart, and then make it the most satisfying ending when they get together. So you start out knowing what the reader's going to expect to a degree, and then you work from there. One of my favorite things to do is there are books and websites with character archetypes, like the librarian and stuff, and you just play with the archetype from there, and work from there to build the character and decide who they are, what they want, and how they're going to interact with each other. Um, and when I'm doing that and I'm mind mapping out everything, spider webbing it out, like I'll put characteristics of my detective, characteristics of my victim's sister, um, characteristics of the villain, even because the villain is generally going to be your mirror image of one of your main characters. So what what are they like so that I can develop the hero and heroine.
Okay.
Does
Nancy?
that make sense?
Yes, very much.
Well, it depends on what kind of story I'm writing. Like in the Light Mages books, I didn't know past the first two books whose turn it was going to be. And the first two were traditionally published, so they were under contract. So once they were under contract, yes, you will write those characters and that story. But after that, it was just kind of like, okay, which story fits best into the continuing arc here? And I usually have only half the couple already set up, so I have to come up with the other half for that series. Like Will in Warrior Mage is an archaeologist and a nerd. So the easiest thing to do was set him up with another archaeologist with whom it would not work out easily, and then an excavation with magical elements and ghouls interested in it. And then, of course, problems between the two of them. So I kind of rolled into that going, okay, whose turn is it next? But with the spies, it's kind of like the first ones were holiday themed stories. So around this holiday, what would work best? And at least half of each couple is a spy. And in Danger's Edge, the back one, the guy on the cover is an FBI agent, and the heroine works for my imaginary spy agency that I made up so it could do whatever I wanted it to. And the FBI does not approve of people who color outside the lines and of agencies that color outside the lines. Whereas the agency that colors outside the lines doesn't approve of the fact that the FBI frequently gets credit for what they've done because they're secret. So that's an underlying thing that goes through it. And really, it just kind of depends on what kind of situation do I want to put these people in? What kind of problem do I want to present them with? And then, like Vikki was saying, it kind of goes, okay, to do this problem, I need this kind of person and that kind of person, and they have to poke each other. They have to grate on each other, at least initially. And the nice thing about your working together on this case is it's forced proximity. So they can't just throw up their hands and walk away.
Okay. Wendy?
Well, making a decision about which pairing I want to do in each book to me is more of a natural process. I'm not really under contract with a publisher, so I can do my own thing, which is kind of freeing in a way. Um, Basically, when I've been working on letters from the sea, I started out with an original premise, which were literally letters that came from my main character, the captain, Wentworth. Um, and he was writing letters to his love interest, but they were never delivered at first because he never sent them. And then when they were sent, after everyone, well, I shouldn't tell the whole plot, but when they finally were sent, it propels the story forward. So the funny thing is, when I did the first book, it was actually only the first chapter of the original novel. And it was about the story from the perspective of Captain Wentworth's brother. And so that story naturally just developed organically to have the story of his summer romance alongside that of his brother. Well, book two, which is called Christmas in Kellogg, which is not published yet, again features Anne Elliot, who is one of the main characters, and she's broken up with the captain, and I can say that because that does happen in Persuasion. It's not a secret. Um, but the story actually gets more involved with her sister Mary and the Musgroves, and a lot of the relationships going on between those two families as Anne has to make a choice. Does she secure her own future with a present gentleman in the neighborhood, or does she hold on to love for the sailor who may or may not come back? She doesn't know. There is a war going on. So she has to ultimately make that choice in that book. So there's a lot of romances going on. And even though Anne Elliot is one of the main characters, the romance is actually a little more away from her.
Okay.
And
Hold
then
that
the
thought.
following books, it just keeps going that way. And I guess I just develop things very organically
Okay.
and let the story take me where it goes.
Okay. Libby?
Well, Vikki, I really loved your idea for plotting out a character, and that is something I would love to try. I am not nearly as deliberate about my characters, and I think that that would not only make it a better story, but also would save me a lot of rewriting because I'll jump in there with some ideas kind of half formed and I'll get moving along the plot and then get halfway through and be like, oh, actually, no, she has to have had a sister who died when she was younger. Like it's a mess. So I love your idea of that plan for being very thoughtful about the characters. I more like Wendy kind of let things happen organically sometimes. And I still feel very new at this writing game. My debut novel was published in August, and then I have two more under contract that are coming out in the next 2 years. So I'm still like getting my feet under me, it feels like. And I will say that sometimes the characters that I create are simply a swing from the last book. So in my first novel, Better Than Gelato, we have this nanny and she is sweet and she is dazzled by Italy and she is so enthusiastic to be there. And then the very next novel, the next nanny who arrives, she is furious that she has been banished to Italy as somebody's indentured servant, and she is unimpressed with everything in Italy. It is stupid and old, and she's fairly mean and bad attitude. And that was very fun for me to write. That was a fun contrast to an earlier character. So At this point, I'm going on like vibes and reaction, and I think I would benefit a lot from Vicki's circles and planned out more. I'm going to give that a try.
Okay. Yeah, the thing I love about continuing characters in a romance series is we really get to dig into, where have they been hurt? Where are they sensitive? What are their hopes and fears? And then, there's also the bigger plot of whatever supernatural danger is going on that they've got to solve. With the shifters, it's also fun creating characters who even in their human form, reflect some of the characteristics of their shifter side. And you can see some of those traits when they're shifted and when they're human. And it's fun pulling those pieces together and dealing with that ability. So we are coming up to the end of our time. I want to go around pretty quickly here. And if you have, please let us know where we can find you online. So your website. And if you have a new, recent, or upcoming book, please tell us about that. Vikki?
Yeah, you can find me online as Vikki Perry on most social medias. I'm most often on Facebook. I also write some content for different Facebook pages, and I'll post that occasionally on my Facebook page. And I am the track director for writing at Con Carolinas. And I attend a lot of cons just as a moderator and things like that. So you'll see me around the con community over the next year or so.
Okay. Nancy?
My website is nancynorthcott.com. I'm some variation of at Nancy Northcott on pretty much all social media. My newest release is Spies for the Holidays, which is a compilation of 3 of the Arachnid Files spy stories that were written for the Canham Castle Holiday Romance series, which is no longer available. And they celebrate their novellas, 3 novellas. One centers on Halloween and Bonfire Night, one on Christmas, and one on Valentine's Day. And those are widely available in ebook, and there's also a print-on-demand edition available from Amazon.
Okay. Wendy? You're muted.
I realize, anyway, I just wanted to hold up my book here. Hopefully, well, it seems to be backwards, but that's okay. The Curate's Brother is newly released as a 2nd edition. The back matter's been updated. I have a new preface in the book. And of course, it now has been developed as book 1 of the series Letters from the Sea. Book 2 will be out when I can. It's just called Christmas in Kellogg. It is kind of a Christmas story, but it's a true romance that spans a full year. It should be a lot of fun. If you want to find me, I am mainly a poet. So like most poets, you can find me on Instagram. My handle there is No Wasted Ink. And I also have a monthly newsletter via Substack. It's nowastedink.substack.com, which also has a voiceover narration, which is on Spotify as a podcast. And my website, of course, is as my name is spelled below me, wendyvancamp.com.
Okay. Libby?
Okay, you can find me at my website, LibbyTannerAuthor.com. I've got a lot of information there, including nerdy pictures of me in the 3rd grade. You can also find me on Instagram at Libby Tanner Author or Facebook, Libby Tanner Author. My debut novel, Better Than Gelato, just came out in August, and it is available in hardcover, paperback, and audiobook. I got a great narrator, and that's a really fun one to listen to. She does all the accents so good. And then the 2nd book in the series is Bigger Than Versace, and that releases from City Owl Press on June 16th, 2026. And the 3rd one in the series, Brighter Than Times Square, that'll be out January 2027.
Very good. Well, I'm pretty easy to find at gailzmartin.com and morganbrice.com. If you look me up on all the social medias, I am under, in most cases, both names. So you can find me there. The most recent book to come out is Cursed in my Witchbane series under my Morgan Brice name. That's one of my paranormal romances. And I'm currently working on a new one in my Treasure Trail series and a new one in the Fox Hollow Shifter series. So I'm hoping that both of those will be out before the end of the year. Well, folks, thank you very, very much for being with us tonight. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. There will be more romance coming up soon, so we'll see you online.